I am Professor Gary Richards. It is my pleasure to welcome you all tonight, both students and parents and friends. Welcome to Mary Washington and this information session about the Department of English and Linguistics, and in particular, our two majors in English and English creative writing. Just a heads up that today we are in the meeting module of Zoom, and the session is being recorded. Therefore, if you don't want your image to be recorded, you can mute your video, and the same thing for if you don't want your voice recorded, you can mute that. You are welcome to communicate through the microphones, or you can comment in the chat. Though we're going to leave about 10 minutes at the end of the session for us to have time to answer those. As I said, I'm Professor Gary Richards. I am the chair of the Department of English and Linguistics. I have been at the University of Mary Washington for, this is now my 13th year. I focus on American literature with a specialization in the literature of the US South, looking at regional studies. I also do work with fiction and drama, and my theoretical perspectives usually are rooted in gender, race, and sexuality. It is my good fortune to have with me tonight Carly Ron, who is one of our majors, who will tell us a little bit more about herself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name's Carly. I am a junior English major with a linguistics minor, also getting a master's degree eventually in secondary education, and I'm in the honors program. So if you have any questions about overlaps or any of those things, I would be happy to answer those as well. I'm really excited. I love the English department. I'm excited to get back into Combs, hopefully next semester, which would be awesome. So yes, anything about the English department, I would love to talk about.
Thanks, Carly. So what we're going to do is go through a PowerPoint pretty quickly. Because I have your email addresses, I will send this to you in the morning as an attachment, and that way you can go into more detail. But we're going to go through it quickly so that you have a chance to ask the questions that you want. So I'm going to share my screen. And let me find... Okay, everyone see the screen now? You have access to it?
Yep.
Okay. So first of all, let me reiterate how glad we are that you are here. We are very proud of our department. We are one of the largest departments on campus. We have at present 20 full-time faculty and about 225 students. Every spring, of course, as majors declare, that grows, so we may even be as high as 250 by the end of the year. Then, of course, we'll have graduation and those numbers go down, but we usually run around 200, 225. We have two set majors. One is in English, which is a standard major with a focus on literature, and then one has a concentration in creative writing. We also have special majors. Usually those are involving linguistics, and a student designs those on an individual basis. If we have time at the end, I can talk more about that. But just know that for today, we're going to focus on the first two majors, the English and English creative writing. Students often want to know, well, what does one do with one of these majors? One thing that you can do is, after completing a degree at Mary Washington, go on to graduate school. So I've just listed a handful of recent graduate placements. So you will see they might include, like Rachel Rogers went on to law school. Other folks go into other graduate programs such as Amanda, media studies. Ariel went into creative writing in the UK, getting to do some international studies there. And Michaela also went into an education program. Now, one thing is graduate placements are down. This is across the United States because of job insecurity. So do not feel like graduate placements are the only way to measure success coming out. Just know that those numbers are down. What we have instead are also significant alumni achievements who may or may not have gone on to graduate school. One that we're very, very proud of is Margaret Bennett. You'll see she was with us quite a few years ago. She graduated in 2010. She majored in creative writing. She went on to do an MFA at Sarah Lawrence, and then just kind of chanced into being a comic book writer. But she's had amazing success. You'll see some of the projects that she's worked on, Bombshells, Angela, Josie and the Pussycats, etc. If this is a measurement of success, she has her own Wikipedia entry, and she has been acknowledged for her particular sensitivity in the comic book profession for dealing with characters focused on LGBTQ stories and things like that. Other folks you will see there, I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but you will get a sense of the range of professions that our alumni go into. This can be coaches, these can be librarians, etc. The heart of our program is the collection of our faculty. Of those 20 people, they're organized in several areas of expertise. The largest is British literature. And you will see when you get the slide, or as you can see now, these come from a range of backgrounds and often with quite impressive pedigrees. I mean, so you will see, for instance, there Professor Lebrecht has his PhD from Yale. He focuses on 17th century studies, John Milton, things like that. Our faculty are often cutting edge with their research. Pictured there is Professor Chris Voss. He originally began with a focus on 19th century British literature, doing a lot with Oscar Wilde, but he has evolved into being one of the leading disability studies scholars, and in fact has coming out in the very near future a book on Oscar Wilde and disability. So these are the kinds of people that you would be working with in our department, folks who are active researchers with national profiles. You'll see three other British experts that we have doing work in the 19th century, the 16th century, and William Shakespeare, and Professor McAllister pictured there on the 18th century. We also have people who concentrate in US literature and global literature. So the first two listed there, Professor Baranachea and Professor Dasgupta, really focus on global approaches. Baranachea looking at hemispheric approaches for North and South America. Dasgupta largely doing post-colonial studies with a concentration on South Asian literature and culture. She and Baranachea both have an interest in film. They are folks who do a lot of work on film in the department. Professor Levin, myself, Professor Scanlon, and Professor Tweedy are the four people who concentrate on traditional US literature. We have a coterie of 3 creative writing faculty. I know many of you are particularly interested in the creative writing program. Each of these scholars focuses on a genre. Professor Belinek, as you'll see there, concentrates on poetry, and she also at present coordinates our creative writing program. Professor Levy focuses on fiction, and Professor Rafferty focuses on nonfiction. Those are the 3 genres where we have junior level classes and senior level seminars as far as creative writing. We also have Professor Brenta Blevins, who concentrates on writing studies more broadly. These are going to be things like advanced composition, writing for the workplace. If you're thinking about a career in business writing, you might well work closely with Professor Blevins. We also share 2 faculty members with the Department of Communication and Digital Studies, Professor Subramanian has a focus on journalism, and Professor Whalen, pictured on the slide, does a lot with digital writing, the graphic novel, and things of that nature. Finally, we do have a coterie of linguists. We have within both majors a requirement for 2 classes in linguistics. All majors take an introductory class, and then they take a more advanced class of their choosing. Professor Fallon and Professor Lee are listed there. The third person, Professor Parker, will be retiring this year, and we're still waiting to see if and when that position will be replaced. But we do have linguistics as an option for both minors, as Carly has, and for special majors. Okay. We are housed on the far end of campus. We are on the opposite end from the hard sciences. So Jepson is filled with those nasty things known as chemistry and earth science, things that I don't understand. We're at the other end in Combs. That's our main building. We share that building with historic preservation and modern languages and literatures. We're up on the 3rd floor. Until recently, we've had our creative writing faculty in classes in 1201 William Street, which is pictured there. We're in the process of doing some switching this summer, so our creative writers will be coming to Combs Hall. So for those of you joining us in the fall, we hope to all be in Combs Hall. We have a number of special opportunities beyond our regular classes where students can really go in depth in an individualized way. One of these is individual studies. That's where if you're a junior or a senior, you can work with a faculty member and go into an in-depth subject. So you will see some of those there. These can be in global literature, like Ghanaian folklore. They can be within creative writing, like novella writing and revising, and they can be within traditional literature, such as James Baldwin, Rethinking Race. Another opportunity that we have for you to begin interacting with our faculty is by choosing an FSM that is taught by a member of our department and usually has a literature basis. Now, not all of these are offered every fall, but you will see Professor Foss has autism in contemporary literature and film. I do one, sexuality in Southern literature. Professor Kennedy, the Grail legend. Medieval literature is her focus. Professor Scanlon does one called Down the Rabbit Hole, which looks at Alice in Wonderland as a way of understanding the first year experience in college. Professor Mothler does Shakespeare and popular culture, and Professor Rafferty does one called Podcasting, the first year experience. I think for this fall, he's going to be doing one called The Idea of Cool. Okay. We also have internships that are available. These are usually reserved for people who are juniors and seniors, and they go out and find them typically on their own. And this fulfills the requirement for experiential learning, something that goes beyond the traditional classroom. So you will see these also come in quite a range. Okay. What I've listed there is my contact information. I'm going to leave it up for a little while in case you want to jot it down. And I'm going to shift now to talk about kind of what the majors are and what our classes are like. Okay. So each of these majors is 36 credits. Remember that in college, most classes carry 3 hours of credit. That means that you're in class roughly 3 hours a week. So that means you have 12 classes in these majors. For both majors, you begin by taking English 295. That is sort of English major boot camp. It is an introduction to theory and really in-depth reading of literature. It's going to be more advanced than probably the literature classes you've had in high school, and more advanced than the other 200 level lit classes that are part of the Gen Ed. Carly, do you want to say a little bit about your experience in 295?
Yeah, so I had Professor Tweedy for 295, and each professor will teach 295 a very different way within their own specialty. And so Dr. Tweedy focused on African American literature within that class, but 295 is intensive. And I do think Dr. Richards did a great job of comparing it to English major boot camp because I took it my first semester, so freshman year, first semester. And it was a completely different experience than anything I had first expected and experienced in high school. Um, it prepares you very well for the English major, and it is a lot, but in a very good way. It will prepare you for the reading you will do, the writing you will do, and it is a bit of a shock, but I do think it is very helpful in preparing you to move forward within the major because it yeah, it is a lot to handle, but in a very good way. I hope I don't scare
But
you all with that, but it is very fun.
most students take 295 either their first semester or their second semester. You are not at all behind if you wait and take it spring of your first year. You've got plenty of flexibility. Both of these majors are designed to give you lots of options. So kind of once you have 295 under your belt, then the heart of the standard major is 300 level. Those are roughly junior levels literature classes. Remember at Mary Washington, the way that numbers are assigned to courses is that if it is a 100 level course, that means anyone can take the course. There's usually no prerequisites. It is the most basic that there is. 200 levels are typically general education classes. Now, it might be something like 295, that it's 295 suggests it's really advanced for a 200 level. 300 levels are usually courses within the major. And then 400 level courses tend to be seminars, are very advanced work that you typically take your senior year. So that's the way those are organized. So after you've got 295, you take these 6 literature classes at the junior level. And this is where all of those professors whose specializations I mentioned, that's where they teach their specialization classes. That's where I teach Southern literature. Professor Tweedy teaches 2 different halves of African American literature, etc. In addition to that, you'll take an advanced writing class, and this can be either journalism or creative writing or advanced composition. You will have to have those 2 linguistics classes that I mentioned, and then you have to have a 400 level seminar. This is going to go in depth. It is capped at 15 people. Typically at Mary Washington, a seminar, that's how it's defined. So your first year seminar is capped at 15 students. A senior seminar in our department is capped at 15. And these are going to go in depth. That might be a single writer, like Tweedy often does one on James Baldwin. Professor Foss does one on Oscar Wilde. It might be a duo of writers. Professor Scanlon often does Emily Dickinson and Hilda Doolittle. Or it could be a very narrow focus like Professor Mothra does Shakespeare and Race. So this will be kind of your capstone experience. And while you're writing in all of these classes, typically the senior seminar has a large paper associated with it where you're doing research and you're writing between 7 and 15 pages, depending on that. Then there is additionally one free elective. This is where we give you that flexibility in the major. So that's the standard English major. If you choose to do the one in creative writing, you have less literature courses and more creative writing courses. So there are 5 courses that are specific to creative writing that you will take. After 295, you will take Intro to Creative Writing. Then that's where you're introduced to all 3 genres. Then you choose 2 of those 3 to do your junior level work in. So you would choose between fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, do 2 of those. Then for one of them, that you want to do your capstone experience in, you would take that seminar. So every fall, we offer the 400 level seminar in fiction writing, and every spring, we offer the 400 level seminars in poetry and nonfiction writing. The fifth class that's focused on creative writing is one devoted to the literary journal. We are very proud of this class. It is where our majors and a group of about 18 people in that class edit an issue of an online journal, the Rappahannock Review. So if you're a creative writing major, you will have to take this class. You usually take it your senior year, but then you go on the job market being able to say, I was the poetry editor for 2024, that issue, the fall issue of Rappahannock Review, or I was the assistant fiction editor. You have hands-on skills of editing a literary magazine, and we think that is really marketable, okay? These classes typically range in size from those seminars that are 15 to gen ed literature classes might be around 25. If it's a double section, like our film class is offered in our department, it's often a double section and it's 50, but that's because it's in a large auditorium so they can show the films. In our majors, usually classes run anywhere between 20 and 25. Finally, then you get to those seminars at the senior level and they're 15. Carly, do you want to say a little bit about what a typical day might be like, say, in a 300 level literature class?
Yeah, that's a fun question. So I've taken some that I can think of off the top of my head, African American literature with Tweety. I am in a 300 level with Dr. Scanlon right now, focusing on Emily Dickinson and Walt Whitman. And so both of those require pretty intensive reading. And so you're going to be spending a lot of time outside of class reading, whether it's novels or poetry. A 3-credit class typically expects you to do 9 hours of work, I believe. I did that math right. So you're spending a lot of time outside of class, either writing your papers or reading. And so when you get into class, a lot of the class is discussion based. So that's one of my favorite things about the English department, English major, is that you aren't really sitting and listening to lectures. Often professors will start with a lecture, but then you will turn to discussion. And so it's pretty lively in English classes because you are discussing either heavy topics or really interesting ideas within the writing. And so all of it is just, it's a really fun day in an English class because a lot of it is discussing with your peers and with your professors.
Thanks, Carly. I think that's a really great way of describing it. Remember what our big goals are at the very limited level. We're introducing you to particular types of literature, particular literary texts. But the broadest thing that this major is trying to do is hone your skills of being able to read smartly, to be able to read between the lines, be able to talk about what you read, and then be able to articulate those ideas to other people. That's what we feel is so valuable about the English major in the 21st century. As we move further and further into the digital age, we know that there are those manipulations of images, etc. But we believe that language still has incredible power to influence people. And that's at the heart what we try to send our majors into the job world, into graduate school, into the classroom, like Carly is going to be doing, as sophisticated readers, analyzers, and relayers of text. So that's our big goal, is for you to leave this, regardless of if it's the English major or English creative writing major, you are an expert in language. Okay. That's taken almost 30 minutes, so I'm going to pause now and open it up to you all. So if you have particular questions, you can either put them in the chat or you can unmute and pose them directly. And no question is out of bounds. We can talk about the majors, we can talk about the program, we can talk about the first year at college. Whatever you have questions about, Carly and I are resources and happy to answer. Let's see, Abigail asked, what does being in the honors college look like in the English program? Carly, I'm going to let you handle that one.
Yeah, so short answer is they pair really nicely together. So Dr. Scanlon, who is one of my favorite English professors ever, is also the assistant director of the honors program. And so she in particular has a really great grasp on what classes help you, what classes you should take, what classes are geared towards honor students. Often there will be honors classes within the department. And so those are kind of suggestions for honors students to take. They aren't exclusively honors, but they are a more critical level of thinking, I guess, is the way I would put it. And I'll talk briefly about this. It's kind of far off, but the honors program has a capstone, which is the fourth year. And if you've attended honors sessions, you've probably heard about this, but you'll complete it in the fourth year, your senior year. And if you're in the English major or have another major, you kind of tie it into what you're learning in class. And it's almost like an individual study where you take a specific topic and you'll further that with your capstone experience. So it does pair really nicely. And I do think the English classes prepare you for that capstone, which I'm getting ready to do. So that's kind of on my mind, but it is a very well-rounded experience too.
Just to gloss what Carly was saying, that if you're in the honors program, you have to take a certain number of honors designated classes each year. The Department of English and Linguistics has worked very hard to have a wide range of courses at both the gen ed level and the major level to carry the honors designation. So Professor Scanlon has multiple ones of her upper level classes to count. When she does a lower level global issues in literature, I believe it also counts as honors. We have Professor Lee, one of our linguists, who offers honors sections of linguistics. So we have tried to work very hard as a department for our students who are doing honors to have opportunities within the major so they can overlap between them. I'm working with a student who's doing her project, much like Carly was alluding to. And just to give you an example, she is doing both her honors project and an individual study in the fall on the same thing. And it's on the religious iconography within the Southern writer Flannery O'Connor's fiction. So what the student is going to be doing is building a website that gives kind of a shorthand explanation of these theological allusions. So that anybody studying Flannery O'Connor can go to that website and see this is how that tends to function. So I think that we as a department really complement the honors program, in part because, as Carly said, Professor Scanlon is such a nice bridge there. Julia asked, how soon can I begin taking classes for my major? You can begin taking them your very first semester. As I said, you can take English 295 either your first semester or the spring. It's perfectly fine if you don't want to jump right into your major. Remember, this is only 12 classes, and you've got typically 4 years to do that. So if you don't start taking those courses until even your sophomore year, you're okay. Here are the two classes that I recommend you might want to be considering your first year. That would be 295 and then Linguistics 101B. The reason for that is Linguistics 101B, that introductory class, also counts in your general ed. So it gets to double dip in both your gen ed and your English major. And that way, if you decide you don't want to be an English major, you've still got that gen ed credit. It also fulfills 2 categories in gen ed. So it's a really flexible choice. Now, if you feel like you have a really strong background in literature, if you have taken maybe dual enrollment classes at a community college or something like that, there are no prerequisites for those 300 level classes. I wouldn't recommend it your first semester, but the second semester, if you see a topic that really speaks to you, say you have been waiting to do work on 19th century African American literature, and Professor Tweedy is offering that class in the spring, go ahead and sign up for it. But I wouldn't sign up for more than one 300 level class in your first year. Then in subsequent years, typically you take, say, two 300 level classes. You want, as Carly, I think, alluded to earlier, you want to be careful not to create too heavy a reading load. If you have, say, 2 or 3 300 level classes that are novel based, and Professor Lorenzen, who teaches 19th century British novels, these are often 700, 800 pages novels, and so you've got 8 of those to read in the semester. If you do 2 of those classes, that's probably too much. So you want to be strategic about when you take those classes. Julia, I hope that answered. Let's see, Carly, this one is from you, from Summer. How do you think your critical reading abilities have improved at UMW?
That's a good question. So I was thinking about it while Dr. Richards was talking, and the 295 class that we've been talking a lot about, when you take it, and assuming that you take it fairly early in your college career, I would talk about this with my friends a lot when we were in that class. I felt like I was literally stretching, like my reading and writing abilities were literally stretching from my high school experience, because it was so much reading, more than I had ever done in high school, and a lot of writing, that I felt myself stretching in a very good way. And so my friend Vanessa and I would talk about that we would every week feel like we had learned something new and could directly apply it into those classes. And the same goes for the upper level classes too. You learn like what a thesis statement actually is, and like everything that you thought a thesis was is false and incorrect. And so you would go back, I have one essay from my senior year of high school that I'll reread and be like laughing at it because it is so shallow. And so those critical abilities that I've learned in 295 and have just furthered and furthered since then have just like outrun by miles what I would be able to write in high school. So it's a lot in a very good way. You challenge yourself and you push yourself. And a lot of that is on you. You have to give in to the classes and you have to do your reading and you have to do all the work. But it is very rewarding.
I'm going to gloss what Carly said. One of the metaphors that Professor Lorenzen uses when he teaches 295 is this is a class that hands you a toolbox. And that you are given different tools of how to read. So how would I go about analyzing a text for gender? How would I go about analyzing a text from a psychoanalytic perspective? How would I do a focus on disability studies? And so by the time you take 295 and these upper level classes, you've got these tools, you've practiced, you have seen your classmates practice, perhaps with different tools that they're applying. And so that when you leave Mary Washington, we hope, have that toolbox so that for the rest of your life, you can read critically with those skills. So whether you're reading novels, whether you're reading the newspaper, whether you're reading magazines, whether you're reading websites, you've got the ability and the tools to see how you're being manipulated, what makes you appreciate a text, what alienates you. So that's our goal, is to give you as many different tools as possible. Other questions for us? And again, any question is fair game. We are really happy to answer whatever is on your mind. See, Julia asked, if I wanted to major in English creative writing and the special major in linguistics, how would that process go? Okay. It typically students, even though they may be planning a major when they come here, you're usually not allowed to officially declare it until the end of your first year. They want you to have 27 to 28 credits earned. So if it's a major that is a standard major, you just fill out an electronic form online. It comes to me. We set up a Zoom appointment. Now, that may change in the fall. We may be back to meeting face to face in my office. And we talk about these are the classes you need to take. We might talk about who your advisor would be. And each of you who declares a major in English gets to choose your advisor. So that would be the standard process. If you're doing a special major, so this might be a special major would be for a major that the university has enough classes for one or two people, but we couldn't offer it as a standard one. So linguistics is that way. With only 3 faculty members, it's really hard to have a standard major, but an individualized special major can be done. So journalism is another one of these that does it. You work with a sponsoring faculty member and you create your own major. Usually it's about 12 hours, but you get to tailor it. So say you want to do a special major in linguistics and you are really interested in Arabic as a language. You might create a special major with linguistics and Arabic classes, but someone else might have an interest in Spanish. And so they might have linguistics classes and Spanish classes. If you're doing a special major in journalism, you might have the standard journalism courses. And then say you wanted to focus on sports journalism, you would take maybe a history of sports class and put it in there. You might take various courses that are offered in the sports management minor and include those. If you want to do journalism with a focus on the arts, you might have journalism courses and digital arts courses. That's the great thing about the special major is you get to design it. Now, the downside is you have to do that work. You have to come up with a rationale. You have to explain why I included this class and this class and this class. And then it goes to a faculty committee and they will referee to see if they think you can do this in 4 years. And often it's a reiterative process. You might propose something and they might write back and say, but did you think about this? So those are the 2 ways that majors go. It's easier for a standard major. It's more work, but you get to individualize what a special major would do. And usually you do a special major in your sophomore year. So I hope that answered. Summer has asked, how does the English program prepare students for careers after graduation? Well, I've tried to address that a little bit, but I'll just hit some of those high points. Is at the broadest, that focus on language. If you're in creative writing, we have that literary journals class where you're practicing those skills. But we also have in both 295 and in our senior seminars, we have small exercises that we have included now to help you with concrete skills when you leave. So we give you talking points of how to talk about an English major, how to talk about with an employer what it does. We give you templates for how to create a CV or a resume that showcases this. We also, and then we've just started this program because students are more and more concerned about how do I make the leap from undergraduate to careers, interviewing people, going out and talking to other people in the field and just asking them, what did you do? How did you make the shift from an undergraduate experience to a work experience? Now, sometimes in the case of Carly, if you're in, say, the education program, that's almost going to be built into the process, that you're going through the certification process, and your advisors in the College of Education are working with you about opportunities and the requirements that, say, the Commonwealth of Virginia has. Carly, do you want to say a little bit about education? Just before you do, I would say about a third of our English majors are in the College of Education. There's a lot of overlap there. Carly.
Yeah, so it is very popular. I am the new education guidelines and the new major in education always confuses me. So I'm not going to speak on that in order to spread false information. But when I am getting a master's eventually in my 5th year in secondary education, so my English major prepares me to teach English in a secondary classroom, which is 612. And so the College of Education has specific classes that people majoring in English in the College of Education have to take. So those include pre-1800, so I'm going to be taking Shakespeare because that will help me teach Shakespeare later. So those are very specific categories that the College of Education expects you to get. And so you have a College of Education advisor as well who helps you navigate those overlaps, because it is definitely, it's easy to miss, and I did miss one, so I'm taking it next semester. So they do help you, but there is certain classes that you have to take in order to get that degree as well. So, but they do pair nicely. Like I said, my capstone will be education and English. So there are ways to combine a lot of things when you do double dip like that.
The other thing that we have as a resource for students on campus is our Career Center that does placement, or at least help students with concrete skills like resume building, resume writing, facilitating internships, which look very good when you go on the job market. We have a new director of that center, Paul Binkley, who is kind of energizing it, bringing it into the 21st century. Also within our general education program, Carly, I think you're under the old program, if I remember correctly, but in our newly revised general education program, we have a new category that's called After Mary Washington. And what this category requires is a particular course. It may be just a 1-hour course, but something that prepares you either in the major or outside the major for making that leap into the real world. So I would say those are various resources that you'll have at the department and at the university to help you make that switch into the career after your graduation. Okay, got about 6 minutes left. Anything else that we haven't touched on that you're curious about? That I'm going to reverse the matter and ask you a question. What are you most looking forward to coming off to college? I mean, you all have had such a disrupted high school experience because of COVID. What are you hoping that college provides for you when you get wherever you're going in the fall? Meeting new friends, absolutely. And that's where the small classes, I think, really help is, you're not going to be at Mary Washington in a lecture hall of 400 people. A fresh start was from Julia. Absolutely. I mean, I think that many students use college as a moment to reinvent themselves, as a moment to change something about themselves, and to explore new things. So, Julia, I hope that you find that fresh start that you're looking for. Anything else that y'all are hoping for?
I do think those new friends that you will find is something very exciting, very promising about college too. And I do think it's important. My friend group has shifted maybe 3 or 4 times since I came here, and that is exciting. It's not a bad thing at all. And so those new friends, a lot of them, as I get higher and higher into the major, are coming from my classes, and they're coming from my specific areas of study. So I do think those friends, you find them everywhere, but you find them especially in those small classes that Dr. Richards is talking about.
I would also say, even though it's not exactly friendships, Don't underestimate the relationships that you're going to start to form with your professors. Your professors are going to be there to support you, to guide you, to give you opportunities for growth, and will also be there thinking about that move to the real world after graduation. We will write letters of recommendations for you. We will be your job references. We will give you those strategies. We love the constant energy that new students bring. So it is, don't overlook that resource. When you get here or wherever you're going, do not be afraid to make contact with your professors. Go to office hours, send them emails, make yourself known to them, because the closer you form that relationship, the more we're invested in you and your success. Let's see, I think it was Summer said, collaborative abstract discussion with people passionate about learning. I'm really looking forward to my FSM for that reason. I would say, yes, the FSM facilitates that, but as Carly's alluded to, all of your classes should be doing that. There should be, I love, Summer, that you began with the word collaborative, because that's what we're doing. We are producing knowledge. I think most of us at Mary Washington no longer teach with the model of, I have knowledge and I pour it into your receptacle brain. Rather, we create knowledge together. So I hope that you have that experience. I have that it's 5:47, so I am going to thank you yet again for coming. I will send the PowerPoint tomorrow morning for all of you who pre-registered. I've got those email addresses. Remember, my email is grichard@umw.edu. I am happy to answer any questions. Carly, do you have final comments for us?
Yes, I just sent my email in the chat too. Like Dr. Richards, I would love to talk with you all. We can set up a Zoom, we can chat about anything, English major, education, honors program. I'm really excited that you all are getting closer and closer to that moment where you can enter a new fresh start, as Julia said. So I'm really excited for you all.
Thank you, Carly, and thank you everyone for attending. I hope it was informational, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Bye, everyone.